Billions of these blue and white face masks were manufactured and worn during the pandemic.
And many people are still wearing them, but in the last 2.5 years, we've also seen a lot of masks litter everywhere, taking their toll in the environment. We wondered what would happen if we buried one of those masks for a year.
So our Sean Stiles did just that to see how much it would break down, if at all, in this Earth 8 report.
So these are the face masks that I think about 95% of the people during the pandemic and still today are wearing. However, they do not break down. So we're going to throw this in the ground and see what happens. All right, so let's just go ahead and throw it in the ground and throw some dirt over the top of it and see what happens over time. That was last winter, and since then I found several studies that show these masks take 450 years to break down and last as long as diapers and plastic bottles. If you look at mass pollution going back to 2020, it would equal 7% of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch of plastic that floats in the Pacific.
At the height of the COVID pandemic in 2020, we were going through about 4.3 billion of these every day.
Mitch Silverstein is with the Surfrider Foundation and says a lot of these masks didn't get disposed of properly.
It's not like people are bad actors and going and just throwing these into the ocean, but you can see, I mean, look at this. You open your car door and if you got one sitting at the bottom, it just flies out and it's gone. So that's why we see these everywhere.
Being made of plastic, these masks don't decompose in the traditional sense. So that's why it's so important to keep them out of the environment. So this planter is where we buried that mask last winter. This is my planter where I grow all my vegetables. So a lot of fertilizer goes in here. I compost as well. I throw my eggshells and cuttings from when I'm doing some cooking. So if anything's going to break down, it's going to be in here. Let's dig in and see what we find.
The truth is, we don't even know how long it really takes to completely biodegrade.
There it is. And just like I expected, these things don't break down. They're like cigarette butts or baby diapers. They literally last for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's unbelievable.
You know, estimates go from anywhere to 400 years to more.
Silverstein says these masks just break apart into smaller pieces
until they become microplastics. And these microplastics, in addition to completely trashing our ocean, have been found on every corner of the earth, including inside our bodies, inside mother's milk, and even placentas.
In 2020 alone, factories produced over 52 billion masks. But here's the scary part. It's estimated that 1.6 billion ended up in the ocean.
Before 2020, I don't think we ever saw these. We never saw masks enough to be like an actual item on our beach cleanup data sheets. And now we've picked up literally thousands and thousands over the last couple of years.
So you're probably asking yourself, what do I do if I'm still using one of these masks? Well, Surfrider has a couple suggestions. One is make sure you dispose of it properly. But what they'd really like to see you to do is invest in a reusable mask that you can sanitize yourself. Sean Stiles, Earth 8. So there are a couple little holes in here. You can see it right there and right there. But that's not from the ground. That's from me digging it up and me digging into the ground when I found it. But as you can see, these things are pretty tough. I got most of the dirt off.
Yeah.
It's stained, but you can see how strong that is.
It doesn't look like a year has done anything to it.
Nothing.
I mean, when you think about the reason they're made to be tough and resilient to keep the germs out.
But they do not break down.
We see so many of these littered too, all across the streets, parking lots.
And what's crazy is they're made of plastic, so they don't biodegrade, but they break down into little tiny micro or nano micro pieces of plastic. And here's a statistic that we didn't bring up in there. Because of the nanoplastics, we as humans on a monthly basis consume up to a credit card's worth of plastic into our body every month.
Because of these masks?
No, because of them breaking down into nanoplastics and they're floating
in the environment. All right.
It's crazy.
How do we get rid of those if we find them around our house? What's the best way to get rid of them?
You should dispose of them through the garbage, through garbage, and at least it's concentrated in one area.
Right. You know, I have neighbors who, whenever they take a walk, they bring a bag.
There you go.
Almost like a dog waste bag, and a little.
What a great citizen.
Catcher, and then they just pick
like
up.
that. I like that a lot. I do that when I come up from surfing.
Very good.
There you go.
All right, so we can all do our part.
You bet.